Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into some really deep ideas about love, self-awareness, and how we grow as individuals. We're going to look at a famous philosopher named Hegel and his thoughts about love and self-identity. It might sound a little complicated at first, but I'll break it down so we can all understand it better. Let's jump right in. 1. Love versus truth. We've all heard people say, love is the answer, or love is the truth. But did you know that love, as we often see it, might not actually be about finding truth at all? According to Hegel, love isn't this magical moment where everything becomes clear. In fact, he believes that love can actually be the opposite of truth. Why? Well, Hegel says that when we fall too deeply into love, we stop focusing on who we are and what we need to learn about ourselves. Instead of discovering our true selves, we're letting go of our independence. Love, in this sense, can make us forget to keep growing and becoming who we are meant to be. It's like we stop the journey of discovering ourselves because we get lost in the idea of being with someone else. Hegel thought that love, when it's rooted in this idea of finding the truth, could actually stop us from seeing who we really are. Love shouldn't be something that makes us forget about ourselves. Real love should help us grow, not hold us back. 2. Hegel's concept of identity. Now let's talk about what Hegel says about who we really are. He believes that our identity isn't something we're born with. It's something we build over time. According to Hegel, we don't just arrive at our identity one day, as if it's something we can just have. No, we create our identity through a process called the dialectic. This is a fancy word for a back-and-forth process, where we learn more about ourselves by facing challenges and interacting with the world around us. Hegel says that we have to keep going through this process of trying to understand who we are, and that's what makes us stronger. It's like a constant battle between knowing ourselves and learning new things. But here's the catch. When we fall too hard into love, we stop this process. We try to find out who we are through someone else instead of learning who we are on our own. We stop working on ourselves because we think that love will give us the answers. 3. Recognition and self-consciousness. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Hegel talks about something called recognition. This is not just about being noticed or praised. Recognition, for Hegel, means that another person sees and understands your true self. It's not about getting attention or compliments. It's about having someone recognize that you are a free, independent person with your own thoughts, ideas, and feelings. Hegel says that this kind of recognition is what helps us become truly aware of ourselves, or what he calls self-consciousness. We need this kind of recognition to realize who we are. But here's the catch. It can't just be one-sided. Both people in the relationship need to recognize each other in this way. If you only get recognition from one person, or if that person doesn't truly understand you, then you won't really grow. You'll just stay stuck, looking for someone else to give you the answers. So, what happens if we try to get this kind of recognition from someone who isn't able to give it? Hegel says that instead of growing, we end up depending on that person. We put all our value into what they think of us, and that keeps us from discovering our true selves. It's like we're relying on someone else to define who we are. Dependency in relationships. Let's think about what happens when we become too dependent on someone else for our sense of self. Hegel believes that falling too hard into love is a form of dependency. Instead of growing as an individual, we start using someone else to tell us who we are. We think that if they love us, it means we're valuable. But here's the thing. Love shouldn't be about borrowing value from someone else. It should be about two people meeting as equals, each bringing their own value to the relationship. When we depend on someone else for our identity, we stop building ourselves up. We stop the important work of becoming who we're supposed to be, and the danger of this is that if the person leaves or stops paying attention to us, our whole sense of who we are can crumble. It's like we've been building our identity on shaky ground. We might feel like we've lost something important, but really, it's not the love that we lost. It's the fact that we never built ourselves properly to begin with. Master-slave dialectic. Now let's dive into a part of Hegel's philosophy that might sound intense, but is really important when we talk about love and dependence. It's called the master-slave dialectic. Hegel uses this idea to explain what happens when one person in a relationship depends too much on the other for their sense of self. It might sound strange, but stay with me. In the master-slave dialectic, one person becomes the master and the other becomes the slave. The master is the one who has control or power, while the slave is the one who depends on the master for their sense of self. The slave is always looking to the master for recognition and value. The problem with this is that the slave never gets to truly grow or understand themselves because they're always relying on the master to tell them who they are. The slave's identity is built on someone else's approval. In relationships, this shows up when one person is so dependent on the other that they lose their own sense of self. They look for validation in the other person, thinking that if the other person sees them as worthy, then they must be. But this is a dangerous game. If the master, the person who is providing the validation, pulls away, the slave, the one depending on the validation, feels lost and weak. They don't have their own solid sense of identity to stand on, and they struggle to move forward. Hegel's point here is clear. When you build your identity on someone else's approval, you risk becoming trapped in a cycle of dependence. You stop developing as a person because you're constantly looking for someone else to define you. Pain of loss. Now, let's think about something that most of us have experienced at one point or another. Losing someone we love? The pain that comes when someone leaves can feel unbearable. But Hegel has a unique way of looking at this pain. He argues that the real pain you feel when you lose someone isn't because you've lost love. It's because you've lost your own sense of self. Think about it. If you've been relying on someone else for your identity, your value, and your purpose, when that person leaves, it's like your entire world crashes down. You haven't built your identity on your own. You've built it on their approval, their attention, their love. And when they're gone, you're left with nothing. It's not just a broken heart, it's the collapse of the image of yourself that you created through them. This is why breakups can be so painful. It's not just the end of the relationship, it's the end of a version of yourself that you built around someone else. Hegel would say that this pain is actually a wake-up call. It's a reminder that you've been living in a way that doesn't allow you to fully know or stand in your own identity. When the other person withdraws, the illusion of who you were also collapses, and you're left facing the reality. You need to build yourself up from within. 7. Hegel's labor of becoming. So, what's the solution to this pain? Hegel talks about something called the labor of becoming. This might sound like a lot of work, and honestly it is, but it's also the only way to truly become who you are meant to be. The labor of becoming is about confronting yourself, your contradictions, your fears, and your weaknesses head-on. It's about working through the discomfort of realizing that you're not yet the person you want to be, and doing the hard work to get there. Hegel doesn't believe that selfhood just happens automatically. It's not something you just arrive at. Becoming who you are is a process, and it requires a lot of reflection and effort. This process involves negation, a fancy word for letting go of old beliefs, false ideas, and things that no longer serve you. It's about questioning yourself and breaking down the parts of your personality that are built on illusions or external validation. The labor of becoming also means embracing pain. Hegel believes that the pain we feel during this process isn't something to run away from. It's actually a sign of growth. When we face difficult situations and feel uncomfortable, that's when we're really learning and evolving. It's like the growing pains we feel when we're developing into something stronger and more solid. So instead of running from pain or looking for someone else to make it go away, Hegel says that we should let that pain do its work. It's the fire that helps us transform and become who we are meant to be. Through this process, we can build a self that isn't dependent on anyone else's approval, but one that is grounded in our own understanding and acceptance. Number 8. The danger of submission. Now, let's dive into an important concept that Hegel addresses: the danger of submission in relationships. Hegel believes that when a person becomes too dependent on their partner for validation, they aren't truly in love. Instead, they're submitting themselves to someone else's control. This submission isn't about loving the other person, it's about relying on them to complete you. In this type of relationship, the dependent person doesn't bring their whole self to the table. They start shaping their life around the needs and desires of the other person, losing their own identity in the process. This submission can be dangerous because it leads to a loss of freedom. You're not free to be yourself if you're constantly trying to please or win the approval of someone else. Hegel warns that this kind of submission doesn't allow for real love to grow. It only allows for manipulation and control. When you submit yourself to another person's expectations, you stop living authentically. You start living in a way that's designed to keep the other person happy or to ensure they don't leave you. You may even change who you are just to get their approval. But in reality, this is not love. It's a form of emotional slavery. And what happens when the person you're submitting to leaves or stops paying attention? You're left empty, lost, and without the sense of self you tried to build through them. Hegel's philosophy here teaches us that true freedom and love come from mutual recognition. Two people who are free and strong in themselves, not trying to control or complete each other. Number 9. Embracing solitude. So, if being dependent on someone else isn't the solution, what is? Hegel offers an important answer: solitude. Solitude isn't about being alone forever or isolating yourself. Instead, it's about giving yourself space to understand who you really are, separate from anyone else. Hegel believed that true selfhood can't be found by simply being around others or relying on them for recognition. Instead, you need to spend time in solitude, reflecting on your thoughts, feelings, and contradictions. This time alone helps you build your own sense of self, not based on someone else's opinions or feelings. In solitude, you get the chance to face yourself without distractions. When you're in solitude, you have to confront your own pain, your fears, and the parts of yourself that are difficult to understand. Instead of running from these uncomfortable feelings, you have to sit with them, reflect on them, and grow through them. This is a painful process, but it's the only way to truly build a solid foundation for yourself. It's like clearing out all the clutter in your mind so that you can see yourself more clearly. Solitude isn't about escaping the world. It's about finding yourself in the quiet without relying on anyone else to tell you who you are. It's in these moments of isolation that Hegel believes real growth happens, because it's only through facing yourself that you can start to become who you were meant to be. Number 10. Building a strong self. Finally, let's talk about the most important part of Hegel's philosophy: building a strong self. Hegel doesn't believe that you can simply find yourself. Instead, he thinks that you must create yourself through a process of deep reflection, struggle, and growth. It's not an easy journey, but it's the only way to become truly free. Hegel's idea of self-creation means that you have to be honest with yourself. You have to confront the things you're hiding from, the parts of yourself you don't want to face. This means being willing to experience discomfort, to reflect on your mistakes, and to question the beliefs you've held for so long. It's through this process of confronting and overcoming your contradictions that you begin to form a true sense of self. Instead of looking for someone else to complete you, Hegel says that you need to complete yourself. This doesn't mean being perfect. It means being willing to put in the effort to grow, to learn from your mistakes, and to face the uncomfortable parts of your personality. When you build yourself up in this way, you become a stronger, more independent person. You stop relying on others to tell you who you are and start creating your own identity from within. Building a strong self doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow process that takes time and effort. But Hegel believes that this work is necessary for becoming a free, self-aware individual. Once you've done the hard work of building yourself up, you can enter relationships as a whole person, not someone looking for validation or completion from others. And that's when real love can begin. Because now, love isn't about needing someone else to fill a gap in your life. It's about two whole people meeting and sharing their freedom, their strengths, and their selves with each other.